And everybody, I've got an exciting guest with me today. It's my good friend, Danielle Grozavu. And I wanted to bring her on this episode because she has an amazing story of pivoting after COVID-19. Now, she's been a travel and retail consultant for quite a while. And through this opportunity, it has changed how she has had to adapt her career. And she's been doing some amazing things on YouTube and helping people heal in a variety of ways. And Danielle, welcome to the show, first of all.
Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Wonderful, wonderful. And can you share a little bit about, not just like your career overall, but more so the pivoting aspect of it as it ties to, the impact from COVID-19 and all of that?
Absolutely. So I've been working in the cruise industry for the last decade, basically. And when you work on a cruise ship, there isn't a lot of downtime or time off. So in my quest to find my next career for when I get off of ships, I never really had a lot of time to do a side hustle or anything like that. I tried a couple of times, it didn't work. So I had been thinking a lot about starting up an online business, but it was something that I had been putting off because I just didn't have enough time. So when the cruises all got canceled and I came home and it was mandatory to stay at home, I was like, oh, this is fantastic. This is my opportunity to put that time into building this online business. And what better time than right now to build an online business? So I was actually really excited, unlike a lot of other people, to be stuck at home because it gave me the time that I needed to start building something new.
Okay, so here's a question. You mentioned that you recognized it as a chance for you to do something different. So was there like initial shock to it where you did like step back and say, uh-oh, what do I do? Or were you like, wow, this is the sign. This is like what I need to be doing, or something else?
I'm very fortunate because I had been getting gut feelings and ideas for a couple months leading up to it. I think from like December, beginning of December, I started getting some ideas of, I had started a blog years ago and I was like, maybe I could restart that. Maybe I can do stuff with it. And I'd been thinking about ideas that I've been working on it a little bit here and there. So I was already in the mindset of being ready to go. I can't say that I took off like a jet engine as soon as I got home. I had a lot of bumps and a lot of figuring things out. But I definitely was fortunate that I had already started thinking about it. So I guess some of the building blocks were being put in place already.
Okay, so there was some planning ahead of time, and this is basically picking up in a way from some of the things that you already put into motion quite a while ago with your blog and everything. Is that sort of what
I
happened?
started a blog years ago.
Yeah.
I wrote on it for maybe 2 months and
Okay.
really enjoyed it. But then I left to go on the cruise ship again. So I just kind of left it alone. I forgot about it. And then it popped into my head again. And I was like, I really enjoyed that time when I was writing. It made me focus on the things that was important to me because I was writing about things that I was manifesting and creating and everything to do with my personal development, which is where my passion is. So I was like, I could do something like that again. And it feeds not only perhaps building a business and getting money from it, but also I get to focus every day on things I love. So it's a double-edged sword.
Yeah, fantastic. Okay, so you mentioned the topic of personal development, and is that where you've focused most of your time more recently?
So since coming home and starting working on the blog, things kind of took me in an unexpected direction. I've been working on doing the inner work on myself and personal development and energy clearing for just myself and my own growth for a decade. And I continued with that so that I could build the blog and build the business. I continued working on myself to remove any obstacles and any fears and anything that was coming up. And in this process, I found a new modality that I hadn't come across before. I ended up doing the practitioner training because I wanted to apply it to myself. And then that unlocked something within me that allowed me to realize that I enjoy providing this for other people. So I immediately just started working on friends and family, and it just kind of took a life of its own.
Wow. And you mentioned a few things there, and the concept of, for people who are listening who aren't familiar with it, like, what do you mean by modality? Like, we've heard of personal development, but when it comes to what you've been doing with family and, discovering a modality, how would you explain that to somebody?
Great question. So within the realm of energy clearing, there are a lot of different ways that you can do this. So the first way that I was introduced to was tapping, which is either EFT or TFT. That's probably the most popular one nowadays, which is literally tapping on different points on your body, which releases energy stuck in your meridians, which is very similar to acupuncture. There's bioenergetic synchronization techniques, BEST for short, which I spent a lot of time doing over the years, and I studied that as well. That one you're dependent on a practitioner. The Sedona method's a good one as well, because you can do that at home and just listen and follow along, and that's really good too. There are different methods of doing it. Those are the modalities, but there's also energy clearing tools like things like flower essences and stuff like that. So I think I mentioned to you before that I counted when I was starting my blog, because I was going to write about all these things, and I counted over 30 different energy clearing tools and modalities that I've tried over the years. So there are a lot of really good ones. There's some okay ones and some ones that not so great.
Yeah, awesome. So you have quite some experience with all of those things. And in terms of what you do now, I know you started a YouTube channel and you've been so consistent with it, which is so impressive. You know, I have met some people that wanted to start a YouTube channel and, you know, they put like a few videos and then that's it. But you've been really consistent and, you know, they're very helpful videos. And with that said, can you explain a little bit more about what specifically is the modality that you're using to help people, or, you know, whatever you would call it?
Absolutely. So what I'm using right now is, I mean, to be perfectly frank, everything that I've done over the years does get a little bit incorporated to what I do, but the actual modality that I'm focused on is ancestral clearing. So this one, the easiest way to describe it to somebody who's never done any energy clearing is it's kind of like Reiki, but not exactly like Reiki, because it clears out not only what you're carrying, but anything that is connected to you through your blood lineage. So if there's energy that is holding you back, you're getting from your parents or somebody in your bloodline, we're clearing that out, as well as ancestors as well. So it goes really deep. It works really efficiently because it goes straight to the root. The videos that I have on YouTube don't do that because that's a more personalized thing. I have to know, speak to you and figure out what the root is so that we can get straight to that and blow it out. But it works very efficiently. It's very good. The only issue I had with it when I first came across it is that you were dependent on a practitioner. And I really like being in charge of my own well-being, and I think everybody should have that same access. So that's one of the main reasons I started the YouTube channel, so that people had a resource and a tool they could go to help them release whatever emotions or burdens are coming up for them whenever they want.
Great. That's amazing. So basically you've applied Reiki in a way that, and I'm not that familiar with Reiki, but it sounds like you've applied it in a new way, in a sense of helping, with blood ancestry. Is that what you mentioned? Or
So energetically, you're connected to anybody in your bloodline and your ancestors. There's a lot of new information showing that there are things that are passed down generationally through your bloodline in your DNA and things like that that you get from your ancestors, and not just physical traits, but there's emotional things that get passed by, and that science is now becoming more popular. But all of these things are energetically connected. So with Reiki, what you're doing is you are channeling universal energy into somebody's physical body, or they could be in distance as well. This is different, but I use Reiki as an example, just if somebody's not familiar. Here, I'm not actually doing the healing. I'm the in-between person. So I'm actually just helping you figure out what's going on, bringing it up to the surface. And then as you focus on it, I'm asking the universe to remove it using a very specific language pattern. And I'm just kind of like the in-between person connecting you with universal energy. So I'm not actually the healer, which is what I love most about this. I'm just the facilitator, if you will.
yeah, that's wonderful. Okay. And I think it's so interesting that you brought up the concept of the genetic thing, because it made me think about the idea that, most of us, when we think of genetics, we only think like 50% from our mom, 50% of our dad. But at the same time, what it really is it's like 25% from a grandmother and another grandmother and another grandfather, and then even digging deeper. But, what else is possible beyond there? And it's so interesting that you brought that up, because, it is more
Absolutely.
than just your mom and dad. So
Yeah, and if you think about all of the wars and famine and struggle that our ancestors have gone through all around the world, if they experience a lot of trauma, that's going to affect their DNA and their genetics. That's going to then be passed on. So there's a lot of science now coming around to back it up. I personally don't care about any of that because I've witnessed the truth of it when I work with people and in myself. But if people need science to back it up, there is that popping up now.
awesome. Awesome. And you mentioned how you are a facilitator. What did you mean by that? Like, when I think so, it's so traditional that when you think of any sort of work being done, that, oh, this other person there is going to be the one, to help you. But what do you mean by like facilitator? How does that
So
work?
I have this analogy in my imagination that I haven't shared with anybody of a way to explain it. So imagine that there's a stage in front of you. You choose what you put on the stage, and whatever you put on the stage is what you want to let go of. And then I am the spotlight operator, and I point the spotlight at whatever it is you want to release. The light is the energy from the universe that dissolves whatever you put up on stage.
Okay, interesting. All
So
right.
I'm the spotlight operator.
Yeah, and I think that adds more, even greater significance to it when you think of like the idea of working on a stage or a set, and you think about the idea that there's so many moving pieces, and the spotlight operator is like, even though it sounds simple, that spotlight operator is so important, and in so many ways to be able to like track certain things. So I think that's interesting, a great analogy in terms of targeting, helping to target the specific areas and all of that. So in a sense, is the person that's working with you, are they giving the instruction and basically you're moving the spotlight, or are you helping them to
They're
uncover it? Or
focusing on what they want to let go of. So if I'm working directly with somebody, I'll ask them a series of questions to help them figure out what it is and kind of bring whatever it is closer up to the surface. The more up to the surface we have, the more we release. And then that's all they have to do. To be honest, the other reason I love this is because it's so easy for the person that is the client, let's say. They don't really have to do much other than figure out what it is they want to release and then answer a couple questions from me. And that's really all they have to do. It's not complicated. What I also love, it's not like therapy where you have to talk about your problems and relive emotions and trauma. Like, I mean, within minutes, this takes literally moments. If anybody ever watches one of my videos, the period where I'm quiet and directing and doing the release, I mean, it's just moments. And it works fast and it's very efficient. So that's what I love so much about this particular modality.
yeah, I did watch some of your videos, and the thing that was on my mind, literally, as you were saying about the silence, I thought that was so interesting. Like, that was one thing that I saw was interesting about the videos, and I didn't understand the process, but just to have that moment of silence, when you're on the computer and it's constantly like constantly moving, constantly ads and social media and tweets and emails and all that, and to like be watching a video where there's just that brief moment of quiet, I guess you could say. It was very interesting. So I thought that was a cool way of doing your videos, whether it's your part of your process or whatever. And definitely, if you're watching or listening, check that out. We're gonna have information on it at the end and in the description. But also continuing forward. So say somebody goes through this or your ancestral clearing. What sort of benefits can they get? Like, what would be like a top 3 reasons someone might say, oh, well, like I would need ancestral healing? Or
So I'm so glad that you asked that question because I often have found that most people, when they go to do energy clearing or energy healing, they don't even realize the vast array of things that it applies to. Most people go in for physical issues, which is wonderful and fine, but there are so many emotional issues that we carry that you don't have to carry that can transform your life and the way you feel when you let go of them. You can let go of limiting beliefs. You can let go of trauma from past memories. There are a lot of different ways you can apply it. So if For example, I've had a client recently who was going through a breakup. So we were working on all of the emotions that were coming up, and she would be crying at the beginning of the call, and then by the end she was totally fine and laughing. I've had other people that are working towards goals, so whenever they hit some resistance towards the next step or trying to figure it out, we do some releasing and they see things more clearly. There's no limit to what it can do, but basically anytime something doesn't feel good, it can be released.
Interesting. Okay, so anytime something doesn't feel good, whether it's like physical or like emotional pain, is that what you mean? Or
It could be physical. I'm mostly talking about emotionally, mentally. So let's say that you're going about your day. This is a good example. So you're going about your day and everything's fine, and then a red car drives by. In the past, maybe you had an ex-girlfriend that you walked by, you saw her in the car with somebody else, and she was in a similar car. There is an energetic imprint at that moment with the emotion that you felt, maybe betrayal, maybe hurt, maybe sadness, maybe anger, and it gets stuck in your energy field. So that can be triggered again the next time you see a similar car, but not consciously. So maybe all of a sudden now you're irritable and you're taking it out on the people around you and things like that because you had a trigger there and you don't really know why all of a sudden your mood changed, but your mood changed. So we have a lot of those things I think most people can relate to in a relationship where you take the baggage from the last hurt or pain and you take it out on the next person. So if somebody wronged you before, you don't trust the next person even though they didn't do anything to you. So those are the examples. So if you clear what happened in the past, then when you move forward, you're not taking all that old garbage and you see things more clearly. You act from a place of presence and you can be more loving and compassionate and see people for who they are rather than from your perspective of being hurt or being wronged or betrayed or whatever the case may be.
that's really powerful because when you think about that stuff, we think about it as baggage, but when we're able to, or when you're able to bring the awareness of it, like, it's more than just what we call baggage. That's such like a generic term for something that impacts us so hugely. This idea that, these emotional things that affect us and, what else is tied to it and where else do we carry it? So, baggage is such a simple term, but thank you for expanding on, what people think is baggage is really like these other things that happen. At least that's what I took away.
No, you're exactly right. That is the point. Everything at its root is energetic. And when things pile up long enough, then they become emotional situations and emotions. And then if they keep going, they can turn into physical issues. But either way, you want to get to the energetic root. And often it happened because of a moment of trauma, but it might not be trauma. It might not be that you got hurt. Maybe it was a decision that you made. I do a lot of work on myself. And recently, a few months ago, I was doing some releasing and I realized that I had some programming from watching Saved by the Bell when I was a kid. Because I saw that all of the cool kids didn't work very hard and it was very nerdy to put in a lot of effort. So I always had a lot of resistance around putting in 100% to whatever I was doing. And I didn't realize I picked up that program because I wanted to be like the cool kids. So I made that decision subconsciously and didn't even realize it.
Yeah. By the way, they're coming out with a new one. They're
are they?
Yeah. They're doing it with.
Is the original cast all going to be in it?
I think a few members, like is Elizabeth Berkley. I think she's gonna be like a parent in the movie or in the show. But yeah, they're releasing it again. Just news. I don't know if you'll watch that, but all right, cool. Well, that is great because it gives us an example of all of that. And okay, so here's another question. And thinking about the idea of, once you clear it, like let's just say, I'm trying to think in the sense of the things that are actually like protecting us. Like how do we differentiate between, something that's protecting us in a good way, like, if you had made a bad business decision in the past, then, in a sense that gives you the insight to not make a similar decision, but but it might also prevent you from taking on good decisions. So how do you like determine that? I know that's somewhat of a complicated question.
No, I exactly know what you mean, and it's a great question, and I'm glad you asked it. So, and I get this a lot with when I'm working with people and I'm trying to encourage them to release on certain things, and they want to hold on to it because they think it protects them. So when you release the emotions attached to things and the triggers, you're not releasing the memory or the fact that it happened. You still remember that it happened, and you still have the lessons from it. You don't have the energetic triggers attached to it and the emotions attached to it. So another analogy that I use to explain this is, I don't know if you ever had this commercial, but growing up, we had a drunk driver's commercial. And it was a car speeding along, driving really fast. And then they put in front of the windshield an empty beer glass. And you can see your vision gets blurred a little bit. And then they put another one and another one and another one until the car crashes. So every time you remove one of these energetic blockages, it's like removing a layer of film from your windshield so that you can see more clearly. So in fact, you can make a better decision because it's not from an emotional place. It's from a neutral place where you can actually see things as they are rather than from a past perspective. So it doesn't remove the lessons that you got, and it doesn't make you just trust everybody all the time, but you're not going to have the trigger.
Okay, that does a great job of answering the question. So basically, it helps to improve your instincts. And okay, great, awesome. All right, cool. And thinking about that, yeah, that was a really great analogy because it tackled like both sides very well. So obviously,
I
you've been
have
doing it for
in my blog, I have an article about how to clear negative energy. And I found that video on YouTube, and it's linked and it's in the blog article. So if people go to my website, they find that article, they will be able to see the video if they need an even more vivid reference.
Oh, fantastic. Okay. And we will have some information on that here soon. And also, so can this like help to remove, say someone's got like a fear of like dogs or snakes or something? Can this help to remove it or?
Absolutely. Yeah, because that's usually triggered in either something that you saw, an experience that you had. I'm not sure if your listeners are into this, but it could be something from a past life as well. There could be something that was passed on. Maybe you heard your mom say when you're young, oh, dogs are terrible, so you decided you hate dogs. There's a lot of ways that could have happened, but absolutely fears and phobias, stuff like that, 100%.
Well, that brings up an interesting topic. So, I'm definitely a type of person to at least like, get some knowledge on what people would say. So in terms of, you're talking about ancestral and you're talking about like past lives, can you share like what does that mean in your world, I guess? Like even for people who aren't listening, I mean, to consider some alternative opinions or perspectives. Like
So when I do this work, it also applies to any energy you carried with you from a past life. Actually, the blockage that I had to doing this work for other people was a past life memory. So I'll just share this. So what came up for me when John Newton, who created Ancestral Clearing, when he did the training, he did a release for everybody in the training where he would focus on whatever would stop you from doing this work. And at that time, I had no plan on doing this for other people other than myself. And what came up for me in the moment was a memory of a past life where I was some sort of, not a witch or anything like that, but I was very in tune with nature and the earth, and I was doing things that were unorthodox. And I was basically shunned from society because I was weird or different or whatnot. So I guess there was a decision that I had made that I had held on to energetically, that I didn't want to go through that again. I didn't want to be treated that way, so I'm not going to go down this path. And so that prevented me from doing something that I am very passionate about and have been kind of drawn to over the years and always changed my mind. There's a couple times where I decided to do different energy clearing modalities over the years, and I would start to do them, I'd do the training, and then I changed my mind and I'd backtrack. So there are things that you can carry. There's a lot of trauma that carries forward from wars that we've been in and things like that. It's all kinds of stuff that comes up.
Yeah, interesting. And I guess with every person that, takes on ancestral healing, everybody has their own experiences. And, of course that can vary. So is there like, would you say that everybody has like these experiences? Like even the people that don't believe in it, like, can they dig into it, or how does that work?
So it depends on what you want to clear. If the root, because remember, we go straight to the root. So you're not going to get that from watching my videos. That's when you work with me directly, because I need to find the root of the issue through talking to you and asking you questions. And then when I do the release, it's different from what I do on YouTube, where it's very general. There, I'm going specifically for what's coming up for you through what we've discussed and what comes up through my intuition. So for some people, when they are doing a release directly with me or another practitioner, it could come up as a past life memory. Sometimes it's from this life. A lot of stuff is from this life. So it really depends. I don't always bring it up at the beginning of a session if somebody is not open to it, because I don't want them to prejudge whatever's coming up, because it really doesn't matter. I don't go too much into going through the memory or whatever. We just find what we need to do the release and we leave, because it really doesn't matter what happened in the past. It's really just about getting the release from it. So whether you believe it in or not, if you want to just believe it's your imagination, you'll still get the release from it. So it really doesn't matter where your beliefs lie.
Interesting. Okay. Well, that definitely, helps, because in many ways, like, even if I think even if our mind comes up with something, that there's something there, and that can be powerful, whether you believe it or not, if you, at least whatever comes up, that is something. So,
I'm very results oriented. And with any time I'm recommending to somebody an energy modality, number one, I want them to get instant results, not something they have to do for 5 months before you see any results. And then it needs to be something fairly simple. I usually prefer something that you can do yourself, although there are some exceptions. And with the past life memories and all that stuff, whatever comes up, even if it doesn't make sense, sometimes things that come up for people doesn't make any sense. It's not logical. None of that matters if you get the release from it. And that's what I try to remind people when we're working together, if they're getting too caught up in trying to figure things out. And that's something that I've had to teach myself over time, because at the beginning of doing all this stuff, I was always trying to figure out the meaning and why and this and that. And then I eventually let it go and just realized I got the result. I feel better. I can move forward in this thing. And that's what matters.
Yeah, fantastic. And okay, so that was some great insight, and thank you for sharing all of that regarding your practice in ancestral healing. And is it just ancestral healing, or are there the other modalities called something else that you also do work with, or that's primary?
So I incorporate a lot of things from the Sedona method or release technique. There are different sides of the same coin, because they ask great questions to stir things up and find different places where things are hiding to release. So a lot of that is incorporated into the way that I approach things. The release technique that I use to clear things is ancestral clearing, because it works so fast and it goes straight to the root. In the future, maybe I'll throw in some different things, but those are kind of the two main modalities that I integrate into working with people.
Awesome. And just to get a little bit more insight, you've shared some examples already about, that nature aspect of it, where you ancestrally felt very naturey. I don't know if that's exact language to use for this, but also the other example of the studying and the Saved by the Bell. So with those, were you able to apply it to yourself in like any other ways? Like, how did you benefit from those? Did you study harder, or like, how did you make that change? I mean, I know that this is like, very specific to you, but just for like example of, someone who might go through and they're like, who might go through what you do and say, oh, well, I don't know what to do now. I feel good, but should I take action? Is it, yeah. Go ahead.
Okay, so great question. And whenever I am, even in the videos, we start off with figuring out what the issue is, then we find the emotion, we find the place in the body to focus, I do the release, and then we check in with how you're feeling. So right after the release, we check in with how you feel towards the issue that you wanted to release. And either it's been totally released and you have that new perspective, or you feel different, or sometimes you just feel neutral towards it. All the emotional charge is gone. I was working with somebody earlier today, and they're like, well, the situation hasn't changed. I'm like, no, the situation hasn't changed, but can you think about it now without crying? And they're like, oh, yeah. So it depends on what the situation is. Sometimes we just have to accept things as they are because we can't change them. And so just removing the emotional charges is the benefit. And then other times you remove the emotional charge and you're like, oh, wait, I see how I can do that now. Or, oh, the other thing I helped somebody with recently, they were feeling stuck around getting their taxes done. They had to do like 3 years of taxes. And so they called me and they're like, yeah, I got all my taxes done that day. So they're feeling stuck energy and resistance, and I don't want to do this. I mean, that's a very simple thing that can be applied to, but there's nothing too big or too small that you can't work on the energy around to release, to feel easy and free and flowing.
Yeah, that's great. And your example there of, what your emotion is tied to made me think of the idea, like, even though there's certain things that happen the way they happen, the idea, or things that are as they are, like, you can't sell your house overnight, and you might be frustrated about trying to sell your house. But like, at the same time, once you remove that like emotional frustration of not being able to sell your house, that can really change things. That entire experience from bad to good.
Absolutely. So anybody who is interested in, let's say, law of attraction, they understand that you need to feel good about something in order to manifest it. So when you're feeling doubt and resistance and focusing on the lack that you don't have it, you can't get into that place of feeling like you already have it or manifesting it. So when you release the doubt, you release the fear, you release the wishing it was already here so that you can accept where you are right now, everything just flows easier. I make no promises as to things are going to come in for you like that, but in some situations they do. And even if they don't, if it's something that takes a little longer, you just feel less stressed about it. You're more at peace. So there are tons of ways that this can be applied, and tons of ways that people can start incorporating this into their lives. I created a few downloadable MP3s recently. A morning clearing. So if you have resistance to the current situation, you don't like your job, you don't want to get out of bed, you have to take care of the kids and everybody wants something from you. So start your day with releasing all the resistance towards doing those things. You still have to do them, but you can do them with less stress and struggle and have a better day. I did one for the end of day, so you can clean up anything you pick up throughout the day. I have one for meditation, so you can quiet your mind a little bit easier. And then I have one general one that you can just apply to anything that comes up.
Wow, that's awesome. You tackled, start of the day to end of the day, so many great areas. That's fantastic. Okay, cool. Awesome. Well, that is Danielle Grozavu, everybody. And she has a YouTube channel, which all the information is going to be in the description for this podcast. But also, what other things do you have going on? What's the best way to reach out to you, or anything like that you have to share?
Absolutely. So my website basically has links to all the different things that I'm doing. You can book an appointment directly with me. You can sign up on my Patreon. It's basically like a membership subscription. I'm doing daily energy clearing that I'm sending to you remotely for only €5 a month, which is an amazing deal. There'll be more packages released in the future when I get some more content filmed, but it's basically an introduction. So if you're not sure and you don't want to make an appointment and you don't want to do anything, it's basically like putting your releasing and your clearing on autopilot. So I definitely recommend subscribing to the Patreon. And then there's a ton of releases on YouTube if you want to try it out. There's tons of different subjects on there. I'm adding new content every day pretty much. I have interesting articles if you want to learn more about things related to everything we talked about on my blog on my website. So there's quite a few things, but everything is on my website, all the links if you're looking for how to connect with me.
All right. Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for your time. And everybody, again, that is Danielle Grozavu. Thank you, everybody, for listening, and have a wonderful day.
Thank you for having me.